Hi, my name's Helen, and I'd like to share with you today some thoughts from Psalm 139. It's quite a famous psalm of David, and if you have a chance today, I'd encourage you to read it in full. But I'm just going to pick out a few of the verses that I want us to reflect upon. Psalm 139 verse 1 reads, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways." And then jumping to verse 7, it says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there." And as you see through that psalm, nothing is hidden from God. We are his creation, and David talks of that wonderful relationship of having God present in his everyday life. And yet maybe today, when you read the psalm, maybe you hear me talking about it now, you might feel just a bit confused and think, wow, that sounds wonderful, but actually I don't really live my life like that. I don't feel like I'm experiencing God's presence in that way at this moment in time. You might be thinking, David seems to know God's presence in a special way. Sounds very nice, but I'm confused. And maybe your experience of finding God's presence seems to have more in common with a reader trying to find the fictional character Wally in a Where's Wally book. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the children's character Wally. This should appear on the screen now. Wally's the subject of a series of books called Where's Wally? A picture of Wally in his red and white striped jumper is hidden on every page of the book. And the reader's job, our job, is to find where's Wally. You might think, oh, that's simple. But take a look at the sort of pages you will find in a Where's Wally book. Just a bit busy on that page. Quite a lot going on. But trust me, Wally is in that picture somewhere. But Wally is often hard to find, and these books keep children and adults entertained for hours trying to find Wally. So if you're in lockdown with children or grandchildren needing something to do, why not grab a copy of Where's Wally? You see, the words from David's psalm that God is always present in our lives may, as I said, feel like this quest for Where's Wally? Someone is telling you that God is on the pages of your life, but you just can't see him. You just can't feel his presence. You secretly wonder at times whether God has gone on an extended break, a spiritual retreat maybe, or he's taken up social distancing. So you see, just as the readers of Where's Wally buy a copy of the book, placing their faith in the author that they actually have put a Wally on every page, today maybe that's how you feel about the Bible. David tells me in this psalm God is here, but you may be asking, but where? And as we look through that psalm, we see that David is so confident. He talks about being with God, about there not being any place that we can go from him. He talks of God knitting him together in his mother's womb. He talks of God being with each one of us since we were born, present in every moment of our lives. And yes, there are times when we tangibly, emotionally feel the presence of God in our lives. when we know for sure he is there. But I think it's okay to say today, actually at times we also feel that it's hard to understand where God is. But what I wanted to say to you today is, one, it's okay to express those feelings because God knows them already. But secondly, let's not be deceived because of our feelings into thinking that God is absent. You see, we cannot let our feelings define our theology. We cannot base whether we believe that God is present with us through life on whether we feel it or not. You see, God is there on the page of your life, right in the middle of the action. Just like Wally was actually in the middle of that page that I put on screen. And if you look close enough, I've ringed him for the eagle eye to show where he was. And I know it's easier said than done, believing that God is there when we do not feel his presence. You know, there's times in my life when God has seemed distant, times of struggle and heartache and difficult circumstances, times when I've initially thought that God put his earplugs in and had gone on vacation, that maybe he'd abandoned me or forsaken me. But today I want to remind you that God says he will never leave you nor forsake you. It is never that God has abandoned us. It might be, though, that we don't perceive or understand his presence correctly in any moment. Sometimes in our desire for God to be who we want him to be, to do things we want him to do for us, especially in times of distress, we miss who God actually is. And the ways we can tangibly see him, we miss them. You see, God's presence is evident in his creation, in people, in you, how he works through people. You see, I think what we need to remember is that we need to be careful about how we look at the situations in our lives, how we perceive what is going on. I'm going to put a sentence up on the screen. You should be able to see it there. I want you to take a second and ask you, what do you see? What did you read? Did you read God is nowhere? Or did you see God is now here? You see, it's all about perspective. It's not about feelings. It's about knowing that God is now here. And although at times we may feel that God is nowhere, David's psalm challenges us to remember. And I wanted to encourage you today to reflect on the fact that actually God is now here.